Welcome. This is Expanding the Circle, Incremental Progress Towards More Inclusive Digital Preservation. I'm Nathan Tallman from Academic Preservation Trust, and I'm joined by Kara McClurken from the University of Virginia. So we all know that digital preservation requires infrastructure, sustainable infrastructure. It's really the core of what digital preservation is. And this can be quite expensive to procure, whether you're looking at an on-premise system, a cloud system, or a vended solution. It's quite a process and it's expensive. This often leaves small and under-resourced institutions without access to a digital preservation. They need large resources for capital investments, like either laying out money for something in a data center, annual licensing fees for vended software, plus the storage fees themselves. APTrust associate membership model is one step towards inclusion. It's a way that smaller and under-resourced organizations can bypass the large annual membership fee, and associates generally only pay for storage or nothing. Kara will talk a little bit more about associate memberships and how those terms are arranged. Before that, just a few words about what APTrust is. We're a consortium with 21 libraries, archives, research institutions dedicated to preserving digital content. We're nonprofit, community-driven, community-governed that really supports the academic and generally cultural heritage institutions. Our members collaborate on building a shared preservation infrastructure and repository and services. Our members contribute towards the inclusion of the design and the features, but APTrust has staff that actually does the development work using that input from the members. We have multiple storage classes to meet different needs. We're a fairly easy to use, well-documented service. We have some tooling that comes along that makes it even easier. So really, there's no technical experience required to participate and deposit digital content into APTrust. Our primary form of membership is a sustaining membership, which is a $20,000 a year membership fee. For that, sustaining members receive a 10 terabyte storage allowance, and they pay based on consumption when they exceed that. APTrust currently offers 3 storage classes at different price points, and University of Virginia is both a member and the organizational home for APTrust. And Kara's going to now talk. Oh,
I'll talk as soon as we get the slides back.
yeah. There we go.
All right. So our associate member model is set up so that sustaining members sponsor associate members. And those associate members may be other units in the organization, they may be other libraries, they may be community partners. So for example, at UVA, we have several associate members that are other libraries on grounds that are financially and administratively independent from the UVA library where I work. Associate members have completely separate accounts from their sustaining members. So the sustaining members have to approve the creation of the accounts and the approval of the individuals who have access to the accounts. But once that gets set up, the sustaining members do not have any access to that content. And then APTrust bills the sustaining member, and it's up to that member to decide what part of the bill, if any, gets passed on to the associate members. It could just be storage fees. They could charge part of the membership fee. One of the strengths of this model is that it lets each sustaining member define the terms. So folks may be doing it to help pay for that $20,000 membership fee. They may be doing it because part of their mission is to collaborate with partner institutions. And it's really the point of it is that it's up to the sustaining member to figure out what works for them. Next slide, please. So what does this model solve? Well, for one thing, it expands the preservation pathways for institutions with limited capacity and resources. $20,000 for a membership fee is not possible for many smaller to mid-sized institutions. So this model helps us fold into APTrust more institutions with more limited resources. It also helps APTrust balance inclusion and sustainability. The more sustaining members we have, the more staffing we need to support those members, the more our costs go up. By creating this tiered structure, the sustaining members provides some of the support for the associate members so that the burden doesn't fall solely on APTrust staff. It also broadens the types of organizations that APTrust is able to serve. So, for example, the Nasser Archive of Lebanese Diaspora is not part of the North Carolina State University library system, but NC State is able to provide a preservation path for that digital archive. The structure also provides support for sustaining members and associate members to choose different storage class needs based on their preservation needs. So for example, Fulcrum needs higher levels of assurance and more copies than its sponsoring institution, Michigan. And our structure allows for that because each associate member picks their storage class totally independently from their sustaining member. And at places like UVA, we already share many library systems with the law and the health sciences libraries. And so this associate member model provides us with a framework to fold APTrust services into that collaborative structure as well. Next slide, please. What this model doesn't solve. Sponsorship can still be a barrier. If a smaller organization wants to join APTrust, but it doesn't already have a relationship with a sustaining member, there isn't a good way to manufacture that. And it's still not a fully equitable model. So associate members don't have the same level of representation or obligation to participate in activities that sustaining members have. And it doesn't fix the resourcing challenges that many associates face, both technical, financial, and from a staffing perspective. So it's not perfect. Associate members may need more support than APTrust or the sustaining members can provide. Next slide, please. So what are the early lessons we've learned? One of the things we've discovered is that not all conversations lead to associate memberships, and that's okay. It may not be a good fit for a variety of reasons, but even if it doesn't lead to associate membership, those conversations can still support broader initiatives in relationship building and educating potential associate members about the options available to them and the things to consider when they're thinking about digital preservation. Another thing we discovered is that it's really important to have clear agreements between the sustaining members and the associate members. UVA was one of the first to take on associate memberships, but we didn't formalize the agreements in writing, and that presented some administrative challenges. So one of the things we needed to figure out is what will the sustaining member be responsible for? Some of these things are outlined by the infrastructure. So for example, as I mentioned earlier, we sustaining members do have to give permission to set up associate memberships. But are we responsible for training, for troubleshooting? What's that relationship? APTrust doesn't require highly technical skills, as Nathan mentioned, but it can be intimidating to get started. And so what are the expectations around support? Some of UVA's agreements include some technical assistance, and some of our agreements do not. What's the financial agreement? Because we didn't always have signed formal agreements in place regarding the additional storage costs, UVA initially was absorbing the costs of the associate members' content. Over time, in some situations, that wasn't sustainable. So it was important to formalize those agreements, make it clear between the associate members and the sustaining members what was going to be expected so that both organizations could properly budget. And then how will APTrust activities like service interruptions be communicated to the associate members? Having all of that spelled out is really important so that we all know what to expect and that it goes smoothly. Another early lesson we learned is that there's a lot to think about on both the sustaining member side and the associate member side before moving forward with a formal relationship. And so one of the things we did to try and alleviate some of those issues is to create a toolkit. This toolkit helps lower the barriers to implementation. And since we have created that toolkit, we now have 5 sustaining members that have associate members and at least 5 more in the process of forming associates. Nathan, I'm going to hand it back over to you.
Thanks, Kara. So with this experience that we've had, we're sort of left with some questions to consider, and we really want to think and reflect upon how this associate membership model is going and how we're doing at achieving the goal of broadening access to digital preservation. So some of these are rhetorical questions. I'll kind of somewhat answer them or put ideas out, but they're really questions I think for everyone to consider. The first one, are there risks of creating tiers of participation? Well, tiers imply different price points with different service levels, and this allows more to participate. However, it can sort of box organizations in. Tiers usually have limits and require a higher level for more benefits. So this could put some organizations in a position to only be able to preserve a selection or fewer things than they would if they had the higher tier. And although associates do have access to digital preservation through this model, they don't have access to governance, as Kara talked about. How do we balance sustainability with inclusivity? Nonprofits, not for profits still need sustainable business models. Early on, there was an idea to provide storage grants gratis, but our board was uncertain about that approach. It didn't quite seem to go far enough, and it wasn't a true reciprocal exchange. And there was also concern about a long-term costs. So, what are ways that other organizations are doing this without incurring unfunded liabilities? The more complex the membership model, the more higher the administrative burden. And APTrust has a small staff, so our associate model is somewhat meant to ease this while broadening access at the same time. What more can consortia do to lower barriers to entry? Membership fees are necessary. The membership fees pay for employees. It's the largest expense. And for AP Trust, our employees have helped us be successful. So they're core to how we operate. One idea might be offering services outside of the consortia by developing integrated services. For example, what if AP Trust was a storage option in Archivit? How can AP Trust better support under-resourced institutions? I think this is, again, a question for all distributed digital preservation service providers. Should we look at storage grants again? Should we consider expanding the membership tiers in some way? What are the alternatives to sponsorship? It's really a large barrier. As Kara said, you have to have a connection there somehow. What if we dropped membership fees altogether and simply charge storage fees? The storage fees would have to be very high to be able to pay for the staff and the other expenses. And so I think that would really be limiting on how much members could deposit, even members who have larger resources. How do we sustain infrastructure while expanding access to preservation? Keep in mind, the more we preserve, the more infrastructure is needed. The AP Trust associate member model kind of strikes a balance here. Sustaining members sustain the service. It's their membership fees that cover salaries. This also allows the associates to only consider storage fees potentially. So it can kind of thread that needle. Organizations used to do capital campaigns to raise funds for things like data centers and buildings and repositories, physical repositories. But you can't do a capital campaign for cloud operational expenses. The shift to the cloud is really leaving behind some important funding mechanisms that haven't been fully replaced. So, stepping back and taking a broader perspective, we believe associate members are an incremental step, but they're not a definitive solution. We're learning as we go, and we're really curious to know what other organizations are doing in this area. Broadening access to digital preservation really needs to be a community discussion. In conclusion, AP Trust associate member model is pragmatic, and we're trying to manifest our values through this. We're trying to be transparent about both its success and its limits. And there's more work to be done by all of us to expanding access to digital preservation. And we need creativity and business planning to find these solutions. Thank you very much for listening to our presentation. Please enjoy the rest of the conference. Um, Stop the pause.